Today we are touring the home of America's most renowned architect. As we open the doors to his world, you'll witness the tapestry of triumph and tragedy that have woven themselves into the fabric of this extraordinary space. Get ready for an intimate tour that unveils the secrets of both the architectural marvels and the personal stories that have echoes throughout these hallowed grounds. Don't miss this unique exploration of creativity, resilience, and the indelible mark left by a mastermind on his own canvas.
Welcome back to LoveNesters. We are at the Frank Lloyd Wright Visitor Center in Spring Green, Wisconsin. We're about to take a tour of Frank Lloyd Wright's most spectacular, his masterpiece, his homestead, Taliesin.
So we are going on the 2-hour home tour of Taliesin. So we are doing a deep dive. We've been here before and done a different tour where you tour the entire property. This will be a little bit different. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for being here.
So you start your tour at the visitor center. You cannot park right at Taliesin. You'll be taking one of these red buses over to Taliesin.
Frank Lloyd Wright's home for 50 years of his life, 50. The guy would end up living 91 years on this planet, and 50 of these years were spent out here in Wisconsin. And Frank Lloyd Wright suggests that he and this Taliesin, they are connected to one another by a rubber band, right? You can stretch him out as far away as you'd like from this valley, from this home, but the minute you let him go, the minute he's free to do so, is when he snaps back here to this location, to this valley. Be until 1911 that Frank Lloyd Wright would come up here to begin constructing his Taliesin. It's one of the first structures Frank Lloyd Wright would build out here in this valley for his home. Frank Lloyd Wright constructed this old dam as a means to provide pressure via a hydraulic ram to pump water up to the home for indoor restrooms. He had been living in Chicago for some 20 years, folks. He was not moving out to the countryside and doing without the luxury of urban life.
Taliesin, a radiant brow in Welch. And there it is from afar.
The house itself has gone through some extensive changes. That house that we see up on the top of our hill today is 3 times as large as what Frank Lloyd Wright originally designed back in 1911. So over the 50 years the guy would live out here, he was constantly ripping this home apart, adding to it, changing it up. And we'll come to find that several different minds were actually, a part of the construction of this house. Today, Taliesin has just a little under 27,000 square feet of space under roof, folks. And that's largely where it's sat since 1959, since the year Frank Lloyd Wright would pass away.
It's 1910, and Frank Lloyd Wright is designing up plans for this Taliesin, and he chooses to, instead of placing his home atop the crown, taking ownership of the hill, rather to place it beneath the crown, on a position he quite literally does, the brow of the hill we see surrounding us.
Built in 1911, this home served as Frank Lloyd Wright's refuge amidst scandal, as he sought solace from the controversy surrounding his departure from his wife for a client's spouse.
The year 1914 marked a fateful turn for the Love Cottage, as dubbed by the locals. On a seemingly ordinary afternoon, tragedy struck.
Wright's mistress and her children were enjoying lunch in one part of the building, while just down the hall, 6 workers were also gathered. In a shocking turn of events, one worker wielding an axe took the lives of the mother and her 2 children before setting the entire residence ablaze with kerosene.
Amidst the chaos, 2 workers managed to escape, but 4 lives were lost in the fire, resulting in the tragic murder of 7 people that day.
Despite profound grief, Wright remained resolute in his determination to rebuild.
By 1914, the residential wing rose from the ashes, only to face another challenge in 1925 when faulty wiring led to its destruction once again. What stands before us today is, in essence, Taliesin III, a testament to resilience and the enduring spirit of an architectural icon.
By 1930, he had more livestock, more machinery, more land. He had to make the choice. He needs a bigger barn. Does he build it 100 feet away from his living room, folks? No, right? What he does, what he ends up building is a structure we still have standing today, about a quarter of a mile to our south. By the summer of 1932, folks, Frank Lloyd Wright was left with about a third of his home sitting here completely vacant. He had no use for these spaces, right? Well, maybe we know where I'm going with this next, folks. Of course, in that summer of 1932, kind of a happy coincidence starts about. Frank Lloyd Wright and his wife, Oglavana, they established what they dubbed their School of Architecture, their fellowship. And this school welcomes young adult, as Frank Lloyd Wright calls them, apprentices, students. These students, they come from across the nation, 18, 20, 34 years old, right? And these students, they're out here living at Taliesin, working with Mr. Wright on a day-to-day basis. That first summer, he has about 24 students show up out here to Wisconsin to live and learn with Mr. Wright. And wouldn't luck just have it, he had about a third of his home sitting here completely vacant. The students and Mr. Wright design up plans for a new entry. An entry that notably would be placed beneath us and bypass the entirety of the barn we've just stepped through, folks. By 1939, Frank Lloyd Wright students would construct what they call together the lower entry. And this is still a part of our home that we have today. It's still, in fact, what we consider the proper entry for the home that we have in 2023, folks. That's where I'll take you down to now. And here on our right, folks, is Mr. Wright's studio wing, and here on our left is his residential wing. This passage of oxygen, we believe, was enough to stall both of the fires. Julian Carleton's in 1914, and the second accidental fire in 1925. Flames stopping here at the breezeway, sparing the studio from what very well, or the barn from what very well could have been certain destruction, and Mr. Wright's residential wing left to burn into a smoldering ruin here. There are charred rafters from the second 1925 fire, which I'd like to tell you a little bit more here. So check that out up above. And this is really when Frank Lloyd Wright wanted to have you make a choice. Which part of the home would you like to step into? We will first step into Mr. Wright's studio, a part of this house untouched by these two fires. This is Mr. Wright's own desk, his own drafting table. Designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, but built by his apprentices, by his students, of course, folks. Traveled something like 7 times throughout his life to Japan in particular, and each time he would oftentimes spend, in today's cash, folks, what could be millions of dollars, purchasing these artifacts and bringing them back here to the United States. The beautiful silk screen we see here is a fantastic example. This is a Japanese screen, pheasant, duck, and pine on silk. One of many screens we're going to see so much more of. That is a portrait of Anna Lloyd Jones. That is Frank Lloyd Wright's mother. And Frank Lloyd Wright would even go as far to suggest, folks, in his autobiography that it was Anna who inspired him to become this great architect, that she hung lithographs of the Brooklyn Bridge in his nursery when he was a young boy, and the Lincoln Cathedral in England.
So if you're enjoying our adventures, we'd sure appreciate it if you'd give this video a thumbs up. It helps other people find the channel.
Falling Waters, the S.C. Johnson headquarters, and the Guggenheim were all designed right here.
So this is one of Frank Lloyd Wright's favorite rooms. definitely has that compression feeling and then expansion feeling when you walk into here. Absolutely stunning. He loved music, and so you see it's set up for music and concerts, but also that idea that you didn't need art on the walls, that you had this beautiful outdoors.
There's a quote of Mr. Wright's in which he suggests music is simply a finger on the hand of humanity. And I think one of my favorite quotes of Mr. Wright's comes about, at least pertaining to this room, when he rebuilt it that third and final time. He would suggest that decoration could be left off of the walls in this room, as the view beyond in the valley would become the decoration adorning this space that we still see presently today here.
When Taliesin was rebuilt after the fire, Wright incorporated stones and pieces of statuary from the original structure into the walls. The rose-colored stones are from the original fire. He called this technique blossoms of the soul.
Yeah, folks, Frank Lloyd Wright would oftentimes consider a fireplace the center of a space. It's a bit like how we think about a television today, folks. You throw it on a TV in your living room, and now your whole furniture is orientated around it, right? Well, Frank Lloyd Wright felt that about a fireplace. He throws one of these down into space and immediately gives it some scale. Now we have something to center a room upon. And designed up plans for his wife, had his students construct for her what they ended up calling the bird walk. And that is still something we have projecting off of Taliesin today, folks. In 1951, in that summer when this bird walk was completed, Frank Lloyd Wright was 84 years old. This is one of the later structures that was added to the home, and one that was added just some 8 odd years before he would pass away. So a very new addition to the structure as well.
Throughout the years, Taliesin has hosted a diverse array of famous individuals in this very room. Among these luminaries was the celebrated author Ayn Rand, who not only spent time at Taliesin, but engaged in a 2-decade-long correspondence with Wright. In a letter dated November 7, 1938, Rand intriguingly hinted that the architect character in her upcoming book was not inspired by Wright, although when The Fountainhead was published in 1943, whispers of speculation began to circulate. Despite the speculation, Wright went on to design a home for Rand and her husband, a design that regrettably never found its way into reality.
Frank Lloyd Wright redesigned this window 22 times until he got it just perfect so that the fall and spring equinox would land on the statue and travel its length.
Drop the ceilings low on our heads. Frank Lloyd Wright hoped that would be enough, or that would make us uncomfortable, excuse me folks, for lack of a better term. And that being uncomfortable would be enough of a motivator to push us through these transient spaces. This tactic is what Frank Lloyd Wright would describe or dub as compression. And compression is perhaps most important, not because of the compression itself, folks, but rather, as Frank Lloyd Wright would try to explain, because of its expansion.
Oh my goodness, here's the secret stairway to... We got behind the scenes tour with the secret stairway. Look at that.
Get a good look out the windows and you'll see why it's called the garden room. Perhaps my favorite feature comes about in 1943 in this room when, a client comes to visit. The client coming out from Manhattan. Solomon Guggenheim, of course, was coming to stay with us for about 3.5 weeks. In 1943, folks, he was coming out from Manhattan to Wisconsin. And well, Frank Lloyd Wright had his students build out that mitered glass, as we call it, bay window today, something to impress Mr. Guggenheim when he arrived to the house. So the students, in a matter of weeks, they built out that window, as we see, folks.
This is actually the location where Frank Lloyd Wright and Solomon Guggenheim created the masterpiece in New York City. And these shells were part of the inspiration of the masterpiece.
First, I'll take you to Oglavana's. I'll meet you in Frank Lloyd Wright's, of course, next door.
So this is the bedroom of Oglavana, Frank Lloyd Wright's third wife. Frank Lloyd Wright's bedroom is at least double the size of her room.
John Gutzen Borglum, the sculptor of Mount Rushmore, was a good friend of Frank Lloyd Wright.
So this is someone who absolutely continued to work up through the very day he passed away, folks. I think it's fitting we end our time here in this bedroom, in this study in particular.
Hey, welcome back to LoveNesters. Thank you so much for joining us today. We did the Frank Lloyd Wright Taliesin tour in Spring Green, Wisconsin. What a great place to visit.
We did the 2-hour home tour and the time absolutely flew by. Highly recommend you buy your tickets ahead of time. Our tour did fill up.
A huge thank you to our tour guides, Spencer, Susan, and Dale. They did a great job of giving us all of the insights on this incredible place.
Highly recommend checking it out. It's one of 2 places in Wisconsin that really has an international draw. Stay tuned. We'll be bringing you the other one in just a few weeks.
Thanks for being here.